Well, how refreshing to talk positively of the Patriots' most expensive offensive prize of the offseason. We can Diggs it. Stefon was off the boat and back on the former grounds of the GOAT as he rejoined the New England Patriots at OTAs. Plus, sigh of relief time, everyone. Drake actually didn't throw 4 picks in 8 attempts. He actually went 14 for 16. Oh my gosh, MVP season confirmed. Or rather, just everyone calm down. Things are looking more like we thought they would. Meghan Ottolini was there at OTAs. She's here with us. It's time for fresh 6 rings and football things.
Hey, whatever it takes, man. It's all about winning, all right? Winning on 3. 1, 2, 3, win!
Celebrating the heroes of Foxborough's past.
Hannah with a good block. Look at Grover. All the way. Watch the block of number 73, John Hannah.
The champions of the dynastic era.
Adam Vinatieri booms a 48-yard field goal, and the Patriots are Super Bowl champions.
The Patriots of tomorrow.
We're going to remove entitlement from our football team. We're going to earn the right to be here every single day.
And the fans whose faith never wavers. This is 6 Rings and Football Things.
Acclimated to your system thus far, and what's been sort of your biggest teaching point with him this spring?
I mean, he's doing really well. He's very smart, works really hard. I think the quarterback room in general is really, really good in terms of putting the time and effort in at this point in time in the year. And like I said, we either make a good play or we learn from the result. And so sometimes as a coach, and nobody wants to hear this, but sometimes as a coach, the negative results can actually be your best teachers because you have a play where something didn't necessarily go your way or the right way, and then you learn from it. And then the biggest key for us as we go forward is when we learn from a mistake is can we go out there the next.
That's everyone's pal Josh McDaniels, Josh McD, back singing the praises and waxing Drake-tastic. I love what he had to say there, Mego, and welcome everybody to the latest 6 Rings and Football Things. The fabulous and talented Miss Meghan Ottolini alongside your old pal Nick Fitzy Stevens. Mego was at OTAs whilst I was on the radio on Monday. I wish I could have been down there watching Drake sling it and ring it. He was 14 of 16. Also good to know Josh Dobbs was 11 of 13, and the other guy was like 1 of 3 with a pick. So that didn't work out for him. I completely forgot his name as well. That said, Mego, we heard from McDaniels there. I like what he had to say as far as, it wasn't just like state media propaganda, like, oh my God, Drake, this kid is just unbelievable. Like head-turning throw at one after another. I heard Tom Curran say on his podcast that some of Drake's throws were actually pretty impressive. He was dropping it in the bucket, delivering on a platter, I think even Tom EC had to say at one point. And over and above and beyond the Stefon Diggs drama and all that stuff, it's just nice to hear that McDaniels is saying good things and also talking about that idea of no, negative plays now can be a good thing. These are the teachable moments. This is how we come together, and hopefully they can meet minds in this complicated but often very productive offense.
Right. So long as the key word there is you're not an error repeater. So it's just kind of a different way of saying that you're going to learn from your mistakes. And from Josh McDaniels' account, and he's a guy who is pretty tough in holding his quarterbacks accountable, at least while he's been in New England at different stints. It sounds like that Drake Maye, very early in his process with Josh McDaniels, is fulfilling that. And that's probably the most important thing right now.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Josh, I saw a video on social media yesterday of him being pretty intense out there with Drake and working with receivers, instructing the quarterbacks. He can be pretty demanding. He can be very exacting as well. And while we still don't know what this new hybridization of his offense, which of course is, so many different iterations of previous Patriots offenses past, now with some new spin that he's added to make it more contemporary and hopefully enhance Drake Maye's many tools and physical skills. It's going to take some time, but to see Drake, like you loved the idea of had a pretty rough start when the OTAs got going 9 days ago. And now all of a sudden he's already shown progress. That means he is putting in the time on the field. He is putting in time with the playbook and studying in the film room where it matters most. How did you think Drake, just to the naked eye, what did you see and how did he look to you?
This was definitely his best day out of the 3 that we've seen as media members,
Mhm.
and we got the report that Mike Reese had it that on one very rainy day when it was closed doors to us, he was absolutely slinging it and killing it, so that was nice to hear, but to see this version of Drake Maye, where granted most of what they're doing is like maybe 80% game speed when they get into their competitive team drills. He made the offense look very functional for the first time in this offseason. And he had great connections with Kayshon Boutte, Ramondre Stevenson, finally back after his bereavement leave, which
Mhm.
obviously is a sensitive time for him. But he said to us, like, he got his first target from Drake and dropped it right in the bucket for him. And
Mhm.
so, like, it seems like he's really developing some good chemistry with different guys who are returning on the roster. And then you get to see a moment here and there from someone like Kyle Williams. Kind of hard to gauge with someone like Travion Henderson because there's not hitting. He looks super fast and explosive, as Ramondre Stevenson said after practice. But then again, you're like, how many of these plays would be blown up, 5 yards earlier because you
Right.
can't really go beyond just putting 2 hands on the guy. But all that to say, I thought that Drake, his timing looked much better. His accuracy looked much improved compared to the week prior.
Mm.
So I do think it shows in this learning period some semblance of progress because you go from a competitive period where you had 4 interceptions and you're like, oh God, is there a regression on the horizon or what is this growing pains
Yeah,
to,
we're supposed to
okay,
see sophomore sensation, not sophomore slump, or so we've been
right,
told.
to the next week you go, he's not turning it over, but he certainly doesn't look in rhythm and time. Some of these throws don't even really seem to make sense.
Mhm.
And then what you have, yesterday, which is, hey, it's like not a perfect day. He had a couple passes here and
Mhm.
there, tip pass, one that was kind of a hospital ball late in practice, where you go, well, he probably wants that one back. But for the most part, the offense looked the best it has in this very short, limited window that we've gotten to see of them so far.
Yeah, next week is when things ratchet up a little bit because that'll be mini camp and that's mandatory.
Mhm.
This is still the voluntary portion of the off-season workouts, but it's important that as many people be there as possible given that you have added so many new people via free agency and via the draft as well. Um, so I'm thrilled to hear that as well. Was there anyone else aside from, Kyle Williams speed, always the timeline king as I call him, or actually Mego, he has been supplanted, he as the timeline king because now there's another receiver that's turning heads and making himself a Patriots legend. That would be one Efton Chisholm. That's right.
Yeah.
Bill Chisholm, no longer the biggest Chisholm in town. Efton Chisholm, undrafted free agent wide receiver out of Eastern Washington, which has given such NFL receivers to us like Kendrick Bourne and Cooper Kupp, continues to just be the belle of the ball, the darling of all in attendance. Like this guy, he's getting fitted for his red jacket at the Patriots Hall of Fame already, and it's freaking June 3rd. Does the
So
same things that everyone's talking about stand out to you when you see him?
yeah, I would say as much as you can have a big day in OTAs, Chisholm had a big day. And you mentioned Kendrick Bourne. A big part of his big day was that Kendrick Bourne wasn't in attendance yesterday. So it opened up some opportunity, without getting hyper specific,
Mhm.
that uh, he could go out there and take some reps with Drake May. And I think it's notable that in his kind of second system reps, if you want to call it that, in his team drills, that he was perfect. And
Yep.
some of this, I guess my only question with this, he looks really good so far. And I certainly have made lots of notes throughout the
Mhm.
days that we're there going, up, there he is, 86 again. There he
Yep.
is. Josh Dobbs loves looking at that 86. There he is in with Drake. He catches a pass. You make those notes and then you go, if they're going 80% speed, and this is a guy who kind of has that Julian Edelman-ness to him where he looks like he's always trying to go 110%.
Mhm.
Now, when you get into full speed and you get into pads and you get into hits and everything, he's a smaller guy. Does he still pop out the same way? I think that's the question we'll get at the end of summer, but he's certainly looking like he belongs right now.
Everyone keeps talking about the sudden ability to change direction, the quickness that it
Mhm.
makes it reminiscent of. And no, not just because he's a little bit undersized and Caucasian, everybody. I can understand the natural comp in that regard, but that it like there's a similar playing style to an energy to him that just naturally calls back some of those players when the Patriots offense, oftentimes as directed by Josh McDaniels, would thrive with some Edelmania or Welka in the slot. And
He's
while
got
people think Pop Douglas is going to be that guy or something, but like maybe just out of nowhere he pops and hits. Sure, there's always somebody like him, but maybe just maybe they could have found a diamond in the free agent rough with this kid.
Yeah, this is gonna sound weird. He's got legs like tree trunks, and
Chisholm?
that's the kind of runner that he looks like on the field. Like he looks like he's got like a powerful lower body where I was saying this to someone at practice yesterday. You know when someone has like a certain gait in their
Mhm.
run where they
Yep.
look like they're trying hard?
Yes.
That's him.
That's it.
Like
Yes.
he runs and he cuts with a lot of power. Whereas if you look at some other athletes, I'm thinking of somebody like Jason Tatum, someone like
A little
Christian
more
Gonzalez.
little more delicate or deliberate.
Yeah, it's more like gazelle-like. And so if you
Right.
wanna get an idea of very early on what kind of cutter, what kind of the way that he moves on the field, he's more of that kind of like power runner, fast cuts, twitchy energy, that Patriots fans are very familiar with.
There's also been we got a question right here. Jason Morris, who's watching live on Facebook, wanted to know any sighting of the offense with a fullback. I think there's a Brock Lampke or Lampke, who's also a free agent. He's getting a love. He's no Efton Chisholm, as the kids like to say. But did you see any before we get into some quick running back talk and then yes, the inevitable Stefon Diggs chat? Did you see any fullback usage when you were there?
Little bit throughout these first 3 practices, but I would say what's important to keep in mind here is something that Josh McDaniels said yesterday, which I think is like just a good reminder. The amount of stuff that they're doing for the first time when they're out there at this point in the summer is high. It's kind of like they're trying new stuff in front of us all the time. And one of the things that McDaniels highlighted yesterday is like they have just gotten to 3rd down. They haven't even started their work in the red zone. We haven't seen them do any red zone work yet. And it sounds like that's not something that they're even doing behind closed doors. So what we're seeing right now is maybe some trial and error or hey, we're installing this, but we've got to see how it looks. We don't know. They're trying out and seeing what fits. And I think McDaniels was pretty transparent yesterday in saying, we don't know what we're keeping here and what's going.
Right.
So
this is experimentation time. It's an outdoor football lab.
Exactly. It's install, it's learning, it's getting to know all these new faces. It's kind of like throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall and seeing how much of it is going to stick and what's worth holding on to when you get to mandatory minicamp and then when you get into actual training camp.
So regarding I've heard Hunter Henry looks great, that he's maybe looking midseason form, or I believe as I think maybe Mike Giardi told us that easily the one that jumps out because he's the most dependable, sure-handed. Like I think he's going to be a great fit in the Josh McDaniels offense as well. And how is Josh McDaniels supposed to know what's going to work? Sure, you can run a sim on a computer, you can map it up and talk through and even walk it through. But until you actually start getting it out there, like you said, at 80% speed, how is one supposed to know what's going to work, what works for one particular player's skill set, so what may work for a Bourne doesn't for a Chisholm, what's a good kind of play for a Henderson may not be as good for a Stevenson. Speaking of which, Ramondre Stevenson, as you noted, was back from his bereavement leave. Great to see him out there. Mike Vrabel says he intends and sees big things for him. If Ramondre Stevenson can get his ball control issues settled down this season, I still think, as much as I love me some Travion Henderson, and in the card-carrying member of the Travion Henderson Appreciation Club already in session, I still think Ramondre Stevenson can be the lead back for this team this year, and they can have a nice 1-2 punch, getting the most they can out of Stevenson now as they ready as McDaniels, who is often want to slow play his usage of a rookie running back, getting him ready to eventually take over while still being an asset this season.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be really interesting to watch this entire running back room. We've talked a lot about the wide receivers, but Josh McDaniels, if you're to believe some of what we heard from some of our friends like Tommy Curran, using that perhaps Josh McDaniels is going to look at Drake Maye and say, buddy, I'm not putting the training wheels back on you, but like you got to wear a helmet and knee pads when you're on this bike to start out with me because we can't suffer 2 to 3 turnovers every single game and get off to a good start. And if you're
Right.
doing that, who becomes your number one back? How much are you splitting the reps between Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson? Does Ramondre Stevenson fix a lot of the ball security issues that he had last year that he was very open to talk about yesterday? And then where are you working Antonio Gibson into that as well? Because if you want to have this balanced offense and have Drake Maye kind of ease into who you hope him to be after Thanksgiving, it's going to be putting that load back on the running back group. So I think it's encouraging to hear that Josh McDaniels still has this confidence in Ramondre Stevenson, especially since you paid the guy a big extension
Yeah.
and he's still here.
When he wasn't here, he got paid. Yeah, he got paid last year by the previous administration.
Yeah, and that you don't have to put so much on Travion Henderson to start because again, like he looks great so far. He's getting really high level reps so far and big opportunities, but it's so early to look at these plays and say, what's he actually going to look like when the pads are on?
Right. I have high hopes and big expectations for him as well. I read an ESPN article recently where they had predicted all of the offensive stats for all the rookies in the NFL this year. And Travion Henderson, he was the only one to make any impact offensively speaking, but it's like Kyle Williams and Travion Henderson. Though Efton Chisholm will be spoken about and heard from soon enough.
He's under the radar.
Yeah, exactly. Right next to
on the national level, they're always a beat behind.
Right next to Lan Larison, children's magician. I love that guy. So they said ESPN projected, not predicted. Nice how I fuse those together in my own little portmanteau. Projected 7 touchdowns for Henderson this year, which I think would be incredible, but that's a lofty reach. No rookie running back has had more than 6 in a Josh McDaniels offense. No rookie running back has ever eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark in a Josh McDaniels offense as well. The leading running back as a rookie was Sony Michel with 918 yards in 2018, but obviously he was also the primary back that particular season. Second was Lawrence Maroney back in 2006, but he was taking over for the bloated corpse of Corey Dillon at that point. So again, he was kind of the focal point. I did a little looking around last week because I started thinking, pass pro's tough. You got largely a new offensive line. David Andrews, of course, retired. What a great Patriot he was. Very emotional second half of the day yesterday down there at Gillette. And I kept thinking, the Patriots offense needs to be run focused this year. I think my thinking is, and I was trying to comp it to a previous or recent Patriots offense as to what would be a best case scenario. And my ceiling, if you will, or my comp for the Patriots offense would be a best case scenario. This was a Josh McDaniels offense, was 2012. The Patriots, I don't know if you know this, the Patriots have their second best offense all time is 2012. It's a top 5 all-time offense. They set the NFL record for the most first downs in a season. They had Tom Brady threw 25 touchdowns, 12 picks, 4,300 yards. I think anybody would take that season from Drake Maye. Some might say like, oh, only 25 touchdowns. He had 15 in 10 games last year. I think that would be optimal, but also the running game that year was huge. Brandon Bolden and Stephen Ridley and Shane Vereen had thousands of yards. Ridley had 12 touchdowns as well. I think Bolden had 5 or 6. They were basically an up-tempo, quick read, run first, play action offense. And yeah, sure, you had Gronk and you had half a season of Gronk and Hernandez as well, but I think the talent they have here matches up reasonably well with what they had back then. How do you feel about the idea of this being a surprising people as everyone focuses on Drake and Diggs and of course the legend of Chisholm? How do you think about the idea of this Patriots team being a run-centric team or a run-first team?
I think depending on how talented Travion Henderson looks, that's the big question. Because we basically know who Ramondre is. When he can control the ball, he's excellent at splitting reps with another guy. That's where he excels the most. So if you have Travion Henderson in there and able to act as even a Damian Harris level guy, I think that you can lean on the run game in a way that alleviates a lot from Drake Maye's play. And hey, let's also think about, I'm not saying that Drake's going to be like Lamar Jackson or even Jaden Daniels in terms of his rushing, but Drake Maye is a running weapon too.
Mhm.
And he
Right.
didn't
That's
show,
there's an element we're completely overlooking, the
right,
fact that
which
he can
you
be a
didn't,
gazelle.
which you got to see with a little bit at times with like a Matt Castle, but you
Mhm.
never saw with Brady. So that would add an interesting wrinkle to what McDaniels could do too. Of course, you saw a little bit of it with Cam Newton, but that was a
Mhm.
very broken down season. So I feel like that doesn't count as much. But yeah, I think that's an interesting strategy to go down. And certainly you look at what's going on in the receiver room right now, aside from boats and rehabs and everything, you just can't sit here at this point in the season and feel super strong about or super optimistic and confident about the Patriots receiver room.
Yeah.
There's not really anything to go on. You go, yeah,
It's a bigger
Kayshon
question
Boutte.
mark. It's a much bigger question mark, but like Henderson's coming in with a great resume and high hopes and great expectations, and Ramondre Stevenson and also like Antonio Gibson. Like there's a great case to be made that the talent between Stevenson, Henderson, and Gibbs, uh, Antonio Gibson says you need not Gibbs. My God, I'd kill my kingdom for Jameer Gibbs, but listen, if Travion Henderson is Ocean State job lot Jameer Gibbs this year, we win. But there's an argument that can be made that those three running backs merit that this should be a run-centric team, and that is right now, without having to learn this new version of the McDaniels offense, those guys would be your best assets to lean on, which will also make for a better passing game for Drake or give him time if you have a strong running game first. And it's also a lot easier for Will Campbell to be a run blocker than it is a pass blocker in his rookie season, too.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that. So are we
Yeah.
gonna get to Steph Diggs? Because it was big
All
for him
right,
yesterday.
fine. I know we went 22 minutes without getting into Steph Diggs, but you got to tell me he comes waltzing out, says, "Good to see y'all." Had high energy, and I got to say though, you could notice when he was running that one leg doesn't flex quite. It's his right leg, I believe, where I believe he had the surgery because one leg doesn't look like it's quite as flexed out or like doesn't have quite the same strength yet. That said, dude was moving for
Mhm.
somebody who had ACL replacement surgery just over 7 months ago.
Yeah, I would say in this case, it was a rare case of being able to look at the individual workouts or those position group drills that I talk about, like we get to film, and that's what you see on social media hours after practice. A lot of times those things don't mean anything, but when you're
Mhm.
looking at how a player moves and how confident he looks and comfortable, I think that was very indicative for Steph Diggs. He
Yep.
was in some of the team drills early in the practice. Honestly, I thought those were like 50% speed drills.
Mhm.
So he was in there for a ton of reps, and that's a great sign. And I think
Yep.
a lot of us were really surprised that he was out there as much as he was.
Not
But
just on a side field riding a bike or observing, but actually
right.
like running drills, cutting hard out there. Like who was he
In the
working with? Jalen Polk. He was there. Like
Yeah,
he was
and
working
in
with
the
him on
position
separation. Yeah, yeah.
in the position group drills though is where you really saw the explosiveness to the point where there was this weird kind of goofy drill where the coaches were like throwing them these giant weighted medicine balls that were padded,
Mhm.
and they were throwing them back, the receivers, and then turning, cutting hard, and sprinting downfield. And at one point, and I put this video on my Instagram, Steph Diggs was doing that right next to Kayshon Boutte, and he practically like caught Kayshon Boutte, who was in front of him, like
Mhm.
almost beat him in the drill. And I'm
Wow.
like,
Well,
all
Booty was
right,
supposedly a little bit out of shape, so
Stefon Diggs he looked good. He looked confident. He did not look like he was moving gingerly or like he wasn't sure about trusting his body
right.
and he looked happy with the guys. I'll say that. He was
Mhm.
giving Javon Baker a little bit of shit during one of the
Good.
they were doing
Good.
like some weird hand fighting thing
Yeah, he's out
during a
there like
drill.
working with Polk, grabbing him by the shoulder, showing him how
Yeah.
to fight off press coverage. He's giving some shit to Javon Baker. I also saw him running and giving attaboy to the Legend of Chisholm as well.
Yes.
So like you could see like it was a great day for the Patriots. Drake looks good. Josh was talking. Vrabel didn't have to punish or censure anybody. Ramondre Stevenson addressed the media. He came back. He looks like he's going to be a big part of it. And then the fact that like Diggs's energy, he's already like, that's part of what you're paying for. Him being in there, being the alpha, teaching these guys the right way to do it. Like, here's how I've been this successful for a decade in the NFL. Here's what I've learned. Let me impart this on you while I also try to be an impactful player myself. My early way too early projections for Diggs are like 77 catches, 1050 yards, somewhere
Ooh,
6 touchdowns.
wow. Okay,
I think that would be, and listen, four and a half catches a game. 4.5 catches a game and a tutty once every 3 weeks. That would be Matt. If the knee continues to heal at this rapid rate and he's ready to go week 1, I'd say he can play the majority of the season and put up some solid numbers. Who ends up drafting behind him and becoming wide receiver 2 and 3? That's part of the fun of the rest of the OTAs mini camp next week, which we'll be there for, and of course training camp, which starts at the end of July.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the important thing right now is to look at, is he going to be there for week 1? If he keeps looking like he looked like yesterday, he'll be out there week 1. And then maybe you'll be in a position. I think it's a big success if you get between 800 and 900 receiving yards for him. I think that's worth this year of the contract. And you're looking at a successful year for him and everything's working out well between him and the quarterback. But we still got many weeks before we get to the starting line there.
Many weeks as well. And were you there in attendance long enough to take in the David Andrews presser?
I wasn't. I was actually writing off Drake and Steph. So
excellent.
I wasn't
Well,
at
good
David
work.
Andrews yesterday.
No, I know that was cathartic for him as well. He looked fantastic. 3:30 delivered about 11 minutes of words. There was a 9-minute video tribute where former teammates sent in videos telling David Andrews stories, wishing him well, congratulating him on an amazing career. I think he's going to have an awesome second football life, possibly as a coach. I definitely can see a broadcast career for him. There's a high degree of relatability and affability to David Andrews. He doesn't have to be, doesn't have to look or sound like Matt Ryan or JJ Watt to still convey good football thoughts and allow people to access his experience as a football player as well. So I think he made the right move for himself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's obviously sad because again, it's another one of these thinking about all the times that he played with Brady, one of these just Super Bowl era guys who are walking out the door and taking those experiences with him. Like, I do think that even if it's somebody to the extent of Matthew Slater, who's not on the field a ton because he was a special teamer, like that experience matters a lot in the locker room and understanding what it takes to go the full distance for that. And so they'll be missing that. And Andrew's obviously a super smart and emotionally intelligent guy. And now it's on a lot of the guys in the locker room now to kind of lay that foundation for whatever this Vrabel era is going to be.
A new leader or new leaders will have to emerge, and that is part of the process as well. Mego, great stuff. Love having you down there. Love the perspective and the insight that you bring. You can follow her at Meghan_Ottolini. Of course, you can hear her on the weekends on WEEI. She'll be joining me as a co-host coming up soon on WEEI afternoons for some summertime sports talk action. And you can read her at weei.com. You guys know where you can find me, the bottom of a pint glass on afternoons or hanging around the local brewery, your old pal Fitzy GFY. Thanks for listening to and watching across the WEEI and Fitzy GFY socials, the latest edition of Six Rings and Football Things. Please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. This is the best Foxborough football fan forum around town and all over Pats Nation. And once again, if you would like to be part of our feedback forum and wouldn't mind sharing your email address with us, you can go ahead and send that to me at townienews, TOWNIENEWS @gmail.com, or go ahead and slide right on in those DMs on the X platform at FitzyGFY. We're looking to do everything we can to improve this podcast and Pats fan experience for you, the good people of Six Rings and beyond. Take care. God bless. We'll talk to